the starting setters for the program.
That's actually cool because I think that a lot of girls think that if you have a lot of success through your volleyball career that you're just going to stay stoked on it the whole time. But we talked about it a little bit before with some other coaches we talked to. We actually talked to Keegan Cook, or I did, in an interview that I did, and then another coach as well. We talked about the ebbs and flows of that you go through your career. So just touching on that, what was it about the conclusion of your freshman year of college, regardless of whether it was Washington or wherever you went, that kind of made you not want to play volleyball anymore?
Yeah, I honestly think I just got burnt out. I was the type of kid in high school, throughout like my whole middle school, high school, when I was growing up, that I eat, slept, and like breathed volleyball. Like I'd wake up, I'd go outside, and like I'd find a wall and I'd be playing with the ball against the wall, or like the moment after school I'd be doing extra reps in the gym. Like I never stopped. Like I didn't go out on the weekends to hang out with friends. Like it was kind of a joke in high school that like I was Rapunzel, like locked in the tower of like my house, because like I didn't leave. Like I just played volleyball all the time, and I was always asking people to get extra reps in. And because that's what like I loved the sport so much, so I wanted to, but at the same time I knew that I was on the shorter side, and in order to go and play at the level that I wanted to, I had to like, or I thought I had to train so much. And then when I got to Washington, I just was so tired of waking up early every day and playing. And I like had an experience like all these things that a lot of other girls that were there had, or that like my friends had. And I just was like, you know what, like this, I want to see what else I can do with my life, and see if I just don't want volleyball to define me. And yeah.
So do you think it was a good time for you to take that? Did it make you appreciate volleyball more later on? Did you have a different perspective on it?
Yes. When I came back, I fell in love with not only the game, but also the training part of it. And that was something that I was really struggling with, was the waking up at like 5:30 in the morning and having to train or whatever. And now it's not so much about like the destination of where I'm going to end up when I was training. It was more about, I was loving the process of training. Like I loved going in and like to the weight room, and like I was always pushing my teammates, and I loved practices because I could like work on that rep multiple times. And I just really enjoyed the environment of everything, and being in it, like being around a team, being able to play. And I, through my process, was able to understand that it was a gift that I was there, that it wasn't just something that everybody could do. And I was just really grateful and happy that I could be there, and I was able to have a second chance.
So what do you think? I think a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is great for right now, because I think a lot of the stuff that I want the girls to be working on is their kind of their mental flexibility and being able to adjust to different situations and go through ebbs and flows, because that's kind of where we're at right now. I don't know about everybody else, but I've kind of hit a little bit of wall with,
Okay.
having to stay home and knowing that we got to do it for another month, and how am I mentally going to cope with that? And how are the girls going to mentally cope with that? And so for me, I started quarantine giving the girls like a ton of stuff, and I've kind of laid back off of that a little bit, because there's just other things besides, I want them to go outside and I want them to play volleyball and I want them to keep their skills up, but I also don't want them to be fried by that when they're dealing with bigger life issues right now than volleyball, and how to find that balance. So I mean, have you thought about, if you were to go back to your high school career, anything that you could have done that maybe would have made it a better balance before you got to college, so that you would have, not had to take that particular route with it? Or do you think it was kind of necessary for you to take the path that you did?
Um, okay, so I'm like, I hate looking back and being like, oh, I wish I did this differently, just because I'm really happy with how like my life has, and like my path has developed me and like molded me into who I am. But I think I definitely I may have taken like, I probably would have taken like some time off to go and hang out with friends sometimes, because that would have like, like now, like a lot of the girls I went to an all girls school, which is what Marymount is. And a lot of the girls that I went to school with a lot of them are close and like still friends now. And like, I don't really connect with them as much as I could have if I did things on the weekends. But I also know that at the same time, not going out on the weekends or having volleyball was, a way to keep me out of trouble, out of doing things I shouldn't have been doing in high school. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know, maybe like I think I would have rather taken some time to like pick up a book and read. I haven't read, oh my gosh, until now for like maybe like 10 years since I was like little, because I just never had the time to pick up a book and read or like paint or just explore other things that I would have enjoyed or would have like could find as a hobby. I think that's something that maybe I would have done differently in high school, was just tried a bunch of different things and not just been so narrow-minded with volleyball.
Yeah, it's definitely a very different world that you guys are growing up in versus what I came up in, because so I played in college up in Santa Barbara at Westmont, and I never played club. I was a multi-sport athlete. I played basketball and water polo and volleyball in high school. And the thing that was really fortunate for me was that there was a really, really good Sunday rec league where I would go every Sunday and play volleyball for 3 hours with a bunch of people who were better than me, a bunch of adults. And that's really how I got good,
Yeah.
playing with them. But I never experienced burnout because I wasn't doing volleyball 24/7.
Yeah.
I was playing my high school season, and then I was playing volleyball once a week for 3 or 4 hours,
Mhm.
all during the off season. So, it was enough for me, at least at that time, to be able to have good enough skills to play in college, but I didn't experience that burnout. And I think a lot of our girls are trying to adjust, and we have girls like all across the board, right? Our most competitive teams are trying to get bids for nationals and bring home medals, and that's a different experience than other girls who just really love volleyball, and they play volleyball for our club because they just enjoy it so much. They just
Yeah.
see it as a part of their life, not so much a means to an end. Let's say like getting into college or whatever it might be. Um, so being that across the board, I think it's just a different experience for everybody. But ultimately, all that hard work that you put in got you the opportunities that you ended up having later on.
Yeah.
So it is kind of that balance, and maybe just figuring out what's really important to you and how much you're willing to sacrifice it, but not sacrifice it to the extent that you're giving up other things that nurture you and kind of like feed your soul a little bit. Besides volleyball, there's other things out there that do that.
Totally. Because I would say that something that hit me really hard when I decided to take my year off, even though I didn't know it was going to end up being a year, was I felt like at that point my whole life had been volleyball, and when I stopped playing, I struggled with finding something that I was passionate about outside of volleyball. And I like felt like volleyball defined me, and I didn't know who I was outside of the volleyball community. So I think finding or not, yeah, finding other things that you enjoy outside of the sport doesn't mean that you don't love the sport any like less, or that you can't train as hard, but it doesn't put you in this small space of it's just volleyball and that's all you are. Because what I had to find out is like I'm so much more than volleyball, and I can do so many things that I didn't know I was capable of doing. And I think that's something that I wish I had branched out more with in high school. But I mean, it ended up all working out. But I know that it's possible because a lot of the girls that I've played with in club or in college, they weren't so strict when it came to volleyball like I was growing up. So they were able to make it and find other paths along the way too.
So how were you able to find that balance once you started playing on the team at USC? Because in theory, you could have started playing again and realized, oh yeah, I don't want to do all this, and um, and gone back to just not having that commitment, which is obviously at a school like USC a really really high time commitment um, to your experience overall in college. How did you find that balance again later on?
I think, well, one, I'm like really grateful for USC because they had a lot of like mentor type people come in and speak to us. And I like took in a lot of what they brought to the table. So USC is a big time commitment. We really don't have like a lot of time for anything else outside of like training. But when I did feel myself start to get a little overwhelmed, like I am a big advocate for meditating. I think that that has like really saved me and has helped me so much. And then I also set apart time for myself to do something that I love. Like no matter what was happening, even if I had like homework that was like, but I always stayed on top of my homework. But if I had homework that day, I was like, you know what, it's okay. I can take like an hour out of my time doing that and I can read a book, or I can like meditate for like 20 minutes and then do something else. Like I always just made it a priority in my life to do something that would make me happy, that was completely outside of the realm of sports. I was like baking cookies all the time for my teammates. They were like, Reni, you're gonna make us fat. And I was like, I'm sorry, but like this is what makes me happy. And like I think just doing things, setting a schedule for yourself, that's a part of your routine, and making sure within that schedule you do one thing that is really good for like your mental health is super important.
What are you doing right now for your mental health?
I am actually hanging out with my nephew all the time. So I get to be a kid again. So all I'm doing is like face and body paints all day. We just like painted like a big canvas outside. We're doing like mini scavenger hunts, just like finding like things that are creative to do that I haven't done in a while. I don't know if you guys know like those like lanyard things that you used to make at like camps and stuff like that. I don't know why, but like I was like, why not? I just started doing those, and I've been reading a lot. Like I've read 4 books since this quarantine has happened. I'm just doing things that I have always put off, that I never thought that like I'd be doing again, or just like trying to be more creative, because this is the time to do things that you may be uncomfortable with, or you would think you'd never be able to, like you wouldn't have the time to do.
Building any other skills that you?
I'm cooking a lot. I'm learning that I might want to go into cooking. Like I want to go like to a cooking school and go into that realm, because have a really big family. I have 9 brothers and sisters. So there's like 6 of us that live in the house at a time. And so I cook for everybody, and I'm also like baking a ton, and that might be like a career path that I might take. Yeah, I'm kind of just like dabbling in a bunch of different things.
Oh, that's awesome. Maya, I unmuted you. Did you have a question for Rennie?
Yeah. Do you have any pre-game rituals that you do before every game?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So glad you asked. Okay. I like meditate for like 10 to 20 minutes. And then I close my eyes and I do visualizations. And I also do that before I go to sleep at night. That was also not just me, but like a really big thing on the USC team. You guys probably know who Victoria Garrick is. Like she's really big on that. Kalia Lanier is like huge on meditation and like visualizations. We would all like sit together and just like close our eyes and like visualize what the different moves that we would be doing, whether it was serving, setting, blocking, hitting, and picturing ourselves doing it the right way over and over and over again. And it just like, one, it gives you confidence. And if you do, like I would do that before I went to sleep at night, and then like the next day I'd feel like I could actually do it. And then I was doing it. And then after all that, like I put my headphones in, then I just play like my favorite music, and then I just jam out and go crazy and then get really pumped up.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember it's probably maybe a year or two ago, and I was on the phone talking with Todd Rogers, and we were just geeking out on volleyball for a long time. And he was telling me that he would play the entire match in his head the night before he would have a big match, like go through all the points to and visualize winning game set one, 21-18, winning set two, 21-17, and exactly how every point was going to go down. And I never did that as a player, but I kind of, I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I would have taken advantage of that. We just didn't know back then.
Oh yeah,
A lot of
totally.
us, unless we were playing at the highest levels, it was never even presented to us to do that. But I do think that to a certain extent, I would visualize what was going to happen in a game, and I think that a big reason why I was really good at reading as a player is because I could kind of, like, especially on defense, I could somehow like transport myself into the hitter's mind and see what they're seeing, and
Mhm.
then make my move on defense, in response to that, going like, well, they're probably seeing this, so I'm going to go, over here. And then that helped me with film later on, because I would then watch film and try to jump in to situations and visualize, what they were going to think and where I was going to go in response to that. And then sure enough, it would play out in real life. It's kind of amazing,
Yeah.
how that works and how powerful it is, to do that. So any particular like meditation techniques that you had, or was it just visualizing how the game was going to go?
Yeah, it was mostly just like visualizing how the game was going to go. For me, it was like specific movements that either I was struggling with, or that I knew like I needed to like perfect during a game. Like when I was setting, like it was making sure both of my hands were going into the direction that I needed the ball to go, or that like if I was back setting, I wasn't bending my back too early. On defense or passing, it was like always make, I don't know how you guys teach passing, but at least when I was passing for USC, we had to pass with our angles out early, and like my platform being far outside of my body, and like that, those were all things that I was visualizing. Because learning how to pass services, especially in college, in 2 months is really scary and really hard. So the way and also after setting my whole life, I never passed. So having to visualizing it helped me, give me confidence, and also helped me during the game, because I felt like, I don't know, it's weird. Like once I visualized it, I was like, oh, I've done this before in my head. I can just do it in my body. My body knows what to do because my mind already knows, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to convey to the girls right now is, it's not a cop out to say that you can get better right now just with taking in information and doing your visualizations. Uh,
Totally.
and I truly believe that. And I think that,
Yeah.
I mean, all coaches, when you get to my age, if you coach some more, as long as I've coached, I'm like, just all the information I've absorbed over the last 20 years of coaching, if I didn't pick up a volleyball at any point in time, I could go back and use that in my playing career and have been a better player without
Yeah.
any reps,
Mm-hmm.
just with all that knowledge taking in. And just, it's almost like never too much for
I,
us coaches, because we'll just filter out what we kind of think is useful or not useful, but we're just trying to always, build on top of that. So kind of getting into that transition that you went through from being a setter to a libero, for any of our girls who are potentially changing positions right now or might have to change in the future, what was that like?
um, it was like, it was scary, but I am the type of person where, or at least when Brent came to me and he was like, how do you feel about this? And I was like, honestly, whatever's going to help my team win. I don't care. You can put me as middle blocker if you felt like that was going to help. But I was willing to do whatever it would take to make everybody else around me better, even if it was like really scary and hard. And it wasn't like this easy, simple transition. Like I struggled a lot throughout the season, and like a lot of people were shocked when they heard that, who were outside of like the team realm or my coaches, because I guess it didn't look like that from the outside. But on the inside, like I was so scared, like every single game, like freaking out. And I would have to look at my teammates and I'd be like, hey, help me. And just having the girls around me and being open with the struggle that I was going through was really helpful. and even with my coaches, like I would go and talk to Brent all the time. And I was like, are you sure that this is what you want me to be doing? Are you sure like you want me out in the court? Cause I'm struggling. And he's like, no, I believe in you. So it was definitely hard, but just having the people around me, like be confident in me, was really helpful. And then I watched film like a mad woman. Like I was watching film on myself all the time to like see what I could be doing. And then I also tried, like I had to keep like reiterating in my mind that I had to trust the process, that this wasn't going to change really fast for me, that I had to be patient. And although the process is going to be brutal and it's going to be rough and scary and things aren't going to go right all the time. Sometimes like there might be a practice where I'm going to be perfect and the next practice I'm going to be horrible. Like, and that's a part of the process. You're not going to be perfect all the time. And I'm a big perfectionist, so that's hard for me. But just continuing to remind myself to be patient was something that I found to be super helpful. And that's also something I had to teach myself, was patience, and the patience of trusting that it's going to take some time, but I will get there. And my coaches who know more than I do, because they've been in the game longer than I do, if they trust that I can do this and they see something in me that I don't see in myself yet, then okay, I can, like, I just have to trust them too. Like I have to put a lot of what's happening on them because they see something that I don't.
Well, I think from a coach's side of it, sometimes there can be a real disconnect between how we feel you're doing and how you guys feel that you're doing. And
Yeah.
almost always you feel like you're doing worse than
Yeah.
we think that you're doing. And part of it is that we understand process. We've coached so many hundreds of players that we've seen the ups and downs. And I was, getting better is not this trajectory, this flat line trajectory up. It goes like this, and eventually you end up higher, but it's a roller coaster,
Totally.
kind of the whole way. So, if you were communicating with Brent a lot about how you were feeling, I think that's probably a big key to why you're able to have success and make the transition. Because I think sometimes girls will harbor their negative feelings and then they will assume that we as coaches feel the same way about them that they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
And eventually that usually turns into frustration, because a player can get frustrated with us because they've attached some way that we feel about them that's not, and we have no clue. If you guys aren't talking to us, we don't always know, because especially as a guy, girls are pretty good at like masking your emotions sometimes, and I don't always pick up on the cues. So when you're going through that process, do you feel like you talked a lot with the coaches about it and navigated it that way? Or?
Yeah, there was definitely times where I would go into Brent's office and I was like, Brent, like, what do you see? Like, I don't see what you're seeing. Like, I'm horrible. Like, I don't know why you want me out here. Like, I'm such a bad player. And he just like, or I would like go in his office, like completely bawling, crying. And I was like, I don't, like, I can't do this. Like, and then sometimes he'd be like, or I'd make a pass and it'd be like on the 10-foot line, but not a perfect pass. And I'm like, oh, I'm so bad. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, he's like, that was a good pass. Like, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, you're not going to be perfect all the time. With everything, I was like going into his office just because I needed help. And I felt like he knew more than I did. And he was the one who made the choice to have me switch. And I don't know, like, I think going in there and talking to him about everything helped so much, because if I didn't go in there and ask him for help, I probably would have been struggling way more, and I would have just been internalizing everything, and it would have also negatively affected my team. And I didn't want to do that, because when you start to, or at least I've noticed with whether it's me or my teammates, when we start to like internalize our emotions and our feelings for long periods of time, whether we notice it or not, even if we're feeling crappy, like it starts to spread out to everyone else around. And then your teammates get uncomfortable playing with you because they don't want to bother you, or they don't want to say something that's going to negatively affect you, because the energy that you're exuding is also being put into the girls around you.
Yeah, I think volleyball is a very difficult game for perfectionists because
Yeah.
most stuff doesn't go, it goes perfect very, very rarely.
Yeah.
But I do think that, I think that probably resonates with a lot of the girls, because I think a lot of the girls would definitely be able to jump into that situation and sympathize with where you're at, because they've felt that way on the volleyball court as well. And just it's always that cliche of taking 1 point at a time and kind of
Yeah.
one rep and one pass at a time. But it's never more true than in the game of volleyball. The better you are at that, nobody's perfect at it, but the better you are at that, I guarantee you, the better volleyball player you are, being able to just kind of go moment to moment. So I'm sure the girls want to know a little bit just about the process of you going to college, and kind of that overall college experience as well. And well, maybe let's just start there. How did you kind of navigate the recruiting process? How did you ultimately decide Washington? And you didn't go to USC for the volleyball, so that just kind of happened, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of like, I wanted to come back to LA. And I was like deciding between USC and UCLA. UCLA was when I was like kind of on the fence about wanting to play volleyball again. But then I decided not, and I wanted to go to SC academically. So that kind of just, yeah. But the recruiting process. So, well, I don't even know where to start. So I was like, when we were playing, my older sister played volleyball, and she went to Boston College. And so that was helpful, having someone older than me and in my family having gone through the process to an extent. And so I, growing up, would go to volleyball camps. I went to the UCLA volleyball camp when I was 13. And after the camp, I started talking to the coaches about playing at UCLA. And then as like time went on, I started going to more camps throughout the summer. That's kind of where my process started. Like it wasn't like a go to like what is it? You call it nationals now, like junior nationals. And like coaches started like sending in letters. That was like much later, up until like, I think the end of my sophomore year of high school. But 8th grade, freshman year of high school, I would just start going to volleyball camps on my own, just because I wanted to play volleyball during the summer and it was just something to do. And then I started talking to coaches through there, and then nationals came around and I started getting letters from coaches. I had this woman, her name's Luann Selsky, and she works for Sunshine, and she helped me with the recruiting process and was actually really helpful and told me to narrow down a list of the colleges that, or what I wanted out of a college. If volleyball wasn't there for me, she wanted me to find a college that I would love if volleyball wasn't. If for some reason I went there and I got injured and I could never play again, that I would want to be there without volleyball. Mm-hmm. So she had me write a list of all the things that I wanted from a school. Did I want to go to a school with a football team, because Pepperdine doesn't have football? Did I want to go to a school that's like that they're waking up at 5 a.m. for practices, because Yale does that? Or did I not want to do that anymore? Did I want to go to a big school or a small school? Did I want to go to a private school or a public school? Like all those different things I had to write down on a list of like what I wanted. And then that helped me narrow down my choices. And then she started to tell me to, like, even if the colleges weren't recruiting to me or coming to me, I was emailing them and putting my name out there with video, my name, my like position. And I was like bombarding people and just like constantly emailing them like every single month. Even if they weren't like responding, I'd be like, I have a tournament here. If you're in LA, you can come to one of our practices. Like we practice then, like you can contact my coach, and I'd send them my coach's information. Like I was like really on top of it. And then it came down to me deciding that I wanted to play in the Pac-12. Well, actually I lied. So I wanted to play Pac-12 or the Big Ten. And I was talking to Penn State, and I was talking to Washington, and I was talking to the University of Arizona. And like UCLA was kind of on the back burner at this point. And then So then I went to Penn State and I was like, this is my dream school. I want to go here. And
At that
then,
time, Penn State's probably arguably the number one program in
yeah,
the
or
country.
the number one program. Yeah. And I like loved everything about the school. Like I was so excited to go there. And then Washington came in the picture and I was like, oh, I don't really go. My dad's like, no, like give it a chance. Like you might as well like try. So we went and visited the school and I went and met with the coaches who was Tui, Jim McLaughlin, who was there. Keegan came after I had already like,
You were already gone before he came, right?
yeah. And I fell in love with the campus. The campus of Washington was like everything to me. Like there was like cherry blossom trees everywhere. Like it was pouring rain and I still loved it. And then I really enjoyed the girls that were there and then the coaches. Like everything that Jim had said to me in that meeting was everything that I wanted out of a coach. And so I was like, everything I was like, sorry, Penn State, like I'm over it. Like Washington's like it. Like it was one of those things where I just like knew when I was on that campus that it was that like I wanted to be there. And so I like changed everything and ended up committing to Washington. And that same year, Washington ended up going to the Final Four and was one of the top 4 like programs in the nation. And so that was kind of like my recruiting process. And funny enough, like SC came into the picture after I'd already committed. And so that's why like SC wasn't really an option. I just said no because I'd already committed to Washington. But yeah, that was kind of my, like a short story of my recruiting process.
Gotcha. And yeah, things can switch like that. And that's pretty common, or like at least more common than I think girls think it is, where you will be on one path for so long and then all of a sudden just steer another direction, or like you said, you get on a campus and you fall in love with the campus. That happened to me a little bit at Westmont where I went to school, and not every situation is perfect. Keegan and I talked about that in our interview, where we feel like as coaches you need to be prepared when you come to not expect everything to be a dream and to anticipate some sort of resistance when you come. I wouldn't change where I went to school, but I wouldn't say that I liked 100% everything about it. In the middle of college, I went to a really small school with only 1,200 kids, like a private liberal arts school, right? So in the middle of my college experience, I was like, this place is just too small for me. It's a little too conservative with me. I just I don't have the same opinions as about 90% of the people that I meet on campus here. And that was a struggle for me, but ultimately I look back on it and I value the overall education I got and the experience I got. And there's always going to be tough moments. So what is it that made you come back? Because I don't think the girls have talked to somebody who went somewhere for a year and then ended up making a decision to go a different direction.
So for me, once I like decided that volleyball was just like I needed a break from it. I like missed my family more than I thought I would. And Jim ended up leaving the same day that I was leaving, and like he was a big part of me wanting to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I also decided that like I wanted to be challenged more academically. Washington's an amazing school. It's like, but I wanted something a little bit harder. And I also decided that I didn't want to be in the rain as much as I thought I did. Because when you're in LA, you're like, oh, the rain, like it's awesome. You love the rain. And then you live in the rain for 8 months and you realize it's not as great as you thought it is. And so then I was like, you know what, if I can make this change, I'm going to try. And it ended up working out for the better for me. But yeah, I think also like just a side note is I've heard a lot of people when they go through the recruiting process, after they've already committed, that they go on their, your official visit, and they realize on their official visit that they don't want to go there, but they're too afraid to change their mind. And I honestly want to say, like, more than anything, that don't be afraid to change your mind, because you have the ability, and coaches will understand that if you don't want to go there anymore, like, it's okay. You can back out of it and go somewhere else. If when you go on a visit after you've committed that you don't want to go there anymore, like, it's okay to change your mind. Like, don't feel pressured to be stuck somewhere just because you verbally committed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, your coach is going to be disappointed, but ultimately it's not the first time that anyone's ever done that, and they understand. And I think for the most part, coaches want the best for
Yeah.
player as a person. And if they're on board with that, and do you think that had you not lost your passion for volleyball at that time, you might have just stuck it out at Washington if you would have been really happy with the volleyball situation? Or is it mostly driven by just kind of, I don't really want to do volleyball anymore, and if I'm not going to do volleyball, I'd like to be closer to home? Is that kind of the thought
Um,
process? Or
yeah. And then I think I just personally, with like my team, I was closer with the girls that were about to graduate than my own class. And so I kind of felt like if I wasn't going to be playing volleyball, and I also am not one to join like a sorority or anything like, it's just not who I am as a person. Um, I just wanted to be somewhere like closer to home and be around people that, like, I had friends that went to USC. And so like I had already like felt like I had like a group of friends there. The girls that I was like close to were about to graduate from Washington. So it kind of all sort of like made sense to transfer for me. But yeah.
got it. One more girl's got a question. Okay, go ahead. I got you unmuted.
Okay. So I wanted to ask if you have any tips for like when you're practicing and like you're not having like the best practice, and like tips for if you like get in your head and you know you just can't shake that feeling that you're like, oh, I'm doing this wrong, and you like just can't seem to shake it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, believe me, I do. I've had those many times. I think for me, as I got older, I learned to breathe. And I actually coach now. I coach for Sunshine for their 17s team, and like I help out a lot. And I know my girls struggle with this too. I would say breathe, and then I would find a teammate and I would look her in the eyes and I'd be like, hey, I'm really struggling today. Just like help me. Like if you see that like I'm like down, just like be there, like be a support system for me. And then also I would narrow my focus to one thing. I felt like when I would start spiraling and thinking I was doing really bad and I felt like I couldn't do something, I would narrow my focus down to one thing that I knew that I could do, that I could contribute to practice, and just really work hard to not stress about the other stuff. So like if it was if I wasn't setting the ball perfectly, I knew that I could make up with that with talking to my teammates. Talking is like huge. I think that's so important. Or even my defense. Like I felt like if I wasn't setting well, at least I can contribute with defense. Like I would always bring it to one thing and be like, all right, today's not a perfect day, but I can at least get better at this one thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Corinne. Great question.
Thank you.
So it sounds to me like you are pretty critical of yourself on the volleyball court sometimes. Is that fair to say? So how, hold on one second. I think, did you accidentally get muted? There you are.
Yeah.
Did you have any issues with learning how to have better self-talk?
Yeah, actually I had a couple coaches pointed out to me, and they would like tell me, they're like, if you like, how do I explain this? Like I would have practices where I'd be so negative with myself. Like I would be saying some things that are not appropriate, just out loud to myself. And I noticed that not only was it bringing me down, it was also bringing my teammates down, and making them super uncomfortable. And I had a couple like coaches pointed out, and they're like, you are not helping yourself through saying this. Like, I thought by being outwardly negative towards myself that I was letting my coaches know that I see that I'm doing something wrong, and that I want to get better at it, and that I'm frustrated with myself that I'm not doing it well. But I had to learn that slowly. I had to catch myself when I would start to say something negative, and I would stop and I'd breathe and I'd be like, okay, it's fine, move on to the next thing. And then I found that the more I did that, I actually started to play better. And then I wasn't, when I would be negative towards myself, that I was playing worse. So yeah, it was something that it was hard to learn because I was so programmed to be negative all the time because I was a perfectionist. But the negativity wasn't helping me.
I mean, I think we can all kind of, for the most part, agree that if you have somebody who's trying to get better at something and they're receiving a lot of positive encouragement while they're going through that process, they tend to get better. And if you have somebody who's trying to get better at something and they have a lot of people giving them a lot of negative feedback while they're trying to get better, that they don't, and they might even get worse. But sometimes it's hard for us to do that for ourselves and to remember that lesson where we'll omit people from our lives that give us negative feedback, but we'll still give it to ourselves, and it has the same exact impact, maybe even a steeper impact.
Totally. I also found that when I was being super negative with myself, my coaches didn't want to talk to me.
Yeah.
That they didn't want to like give me any feedback because they thought that I was like already, or they felt that I was already self-destructing, and that giving me more feedback or anything would just make it worse. So I also didn't like that because I love having like a coaching, like a relationship with my coaches, especially during practice or in a game. And like, I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable telling me something because I was being negative to myself, or even like my teammates. If I was setting and I was like, if I was super negative, like my hitters were afraid to tell me that the ball was too tight or that they needed it faster. Like they just everyone kind of just started to like veer away from me, if that makes sense. I was like on an island by myself.
Yeah, and volleyball's not a sport for being on an island all by yourself, right?
Exactly.
Like everybody has to be on the same island, for
Totally.
sure. Well, I don't want to keep you too long. I don't have any other questions from the girls unless somebody wants to raise their hand. I'll do gallery real quick. Does anybody on here have any more questions?
Could literally be anything, but if not, I'm good.
I know I steered the conversation a certain direction, but the girls had kind of questions on different topics, but that's great because I want to make sure that they okay. Well, thank you so much for your time and just talking a little bit with us, and we appreciate you being here, and hopefully I'll see you around. I'm sure I'll see you at some tournaments. I know a bunch of sunshine coaches, so
Really? Yeah.
I'll come over and say hi.
Amazing.
Right.
Amazing. Thank you,
All
guys.
right. Well, stay safe, stay healthy. We wish the best for you and your family, and we'll get out of this soon.
Yeah, you too. Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye.